Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse, host of the Bible Forum. We meet every Sunday night right here at thebibleforum.net from 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock on Sunday evenings. We've been doing this for 17 years, and we'd love for you to join us at thebibleforum.net. Tonight I want to talk to you about some students in Idaho wanting to go to a dinosaur museum, a field trip. Uh, This is a place where you can look inside the skull of a Tyrannosaurus rex. It's a replica. Uh, you can see fossils from all different parts of the world, things that you probably have never seen here, and unless you went overseas, you wouldn't see them anyway. Over 200 of these belonging to animals that they have found in Patagonia and other places. Um, it is showing up in a museum, apparently, somewhere near this school in Montana, and the teacher decided that they should go and see it. It's come close, let's go do it. They planned a field trip to the dinosaur museum. But a lady, I think it was a lady, maybe it wasn't, I don't want to be unfair. No, it wasn't, didn't say. They canceled the trip because they got a letter from an organization called Americans United for Separation of Church and State. The problem that they had, this organization had with the kids going, is that while the museum is offering fossils which are valuable to study, it's being done in a museum that also teaches biblical creationism as opposed to evolution. And they said that because they taught the biblical view of creation, it wouldn't be right for the kids to go. Separation of church and state. This is the thought police at work. Should children be given both sides of a story? Should children just be indoctrinated, or should they be taught? When I was in school, we were not taught creationism, but we were not taught against it. I remember in 6th grade, we studied prehistoric man. I was 11 years old. I didn't know a whole lot. But I remember struggling because I went to church. I struggled with how to match up prehistorical people with the Genesis account. If they are prehistory, Genesis is history. Where'd they come from? But I remember never asking anybody. Never asked my dad, never asked my Sunday school teacher, I never asked my teacher. I just went merrily along the way. I made my little thing. We had to make bow and arrows. We had a little clay thing. I mean, we had a lot of fun. It didn't harm me a whole lot to learn all this other stuff. And I don't think that it would harm these students in their education to learn that there are people who don't believe that, but believe on the other side. And the people on the other side have facts, credible facts, figures, timings, things that justify what they're saying. They're not picking things out of thin air. I got a child in school and they want to take them to a museum where they're going to be exposed to evolutionary thought. I don't have a problem with that. If I did, I wouldn't put my children in the school. The interesting thing to me this week is I read several articles that came out on Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is a mountain in Washington State, in St. Helens, Washington State, that blew up in 1980. In May of that year, it exploded, producing 20 megatons of steam blast energy. Superheated, erosive rivers of ground-hugging volcanic ash and steam. 2/3 of a cubic mile of landslide and eruption debris, occupying up to 23 square miles of the North Fork and Tuttle River, north and west of the crater. It is estimated that 1 million trees were uprooted and forced down the mountain and onto Spirit Lake. Mud flows gouged out soft volcanic ash deposits, as well as even the hardest rocks, to form new canyons. Enormous water waves inflicted severe erosion, forming distinct explosion pits. 2 years later, another explosion occurred, melting a thick snowpack that was in the crater, creating a destructive sheet-like flood of water, which became a mud flow. Bedrock was eroded up to 600 feet deep to form what is now being called Step Canyon and Lowitt Canyon on the north flank of the volcano. The erosion left elevated plateaus north and south of the Great Breach, resembling the north and south rims of the Colorado River. The breach did not occur straight through the obstruction, but has a meandering path, reminiscent of the meandering path of the Grand Canyon through the high plateaus of northern Arizona. The most astounding discovery, however, has been the 20,000 or so trees that are now standing upright in the lake, as though they've been planted many years earlier. The various conifers of the region represented are all represented in this upright deposit of logs that look like a petrified forest underwater. Along with this is an enormous log mat floating on the lake, stripped from the trees, the bark. Divers have found water-saturated sheets of conifer bark intermingled with volcanic sediment, forming a layer of peat at the bottom of the lake, many inches thick. Spirit Lake peat resembles post-compositionally and texturally certain coal fields of the eastern United States, which are also dominated by tree bark and appear to have accumulated beneath floating log mats. They're calling this place the Little Grand Canyon, and it is a product of catastrophism. It is not a product of time, evolution over time. It's a huge natural structure that's been created out of chaos, as opposed to the millions of years of natural erosion. Pictures that you can see, and on my blog I show you one of the pictures of the side of this thing. Show the sides of the canyon to be layered, just like at the Grand Canyon. The style and the arrangement of the canyons, the meandering nature of the river, the stratification of the walls, all of it is strikingly familiar. Scientists have done a magnificent job constructing and deconstructing systems and processes to our significant advantage. We have learned a great deal. However, since the days of Darwin, scientists have largely left off observation, and they have begun indoctrination. The world could not possibly have been created in 6 days. Human beings must be older than 6,000 years. The fossil record proves it. The sediment records prove this. Knowledge accumulates over time. Therefore, the older civilizations must be less sophisticated than newer civilizations. The fact that archaeology occasionally stumbles on situations that are totally opposite oftentimes gets swept under the rug. Our society is far more technically advanced, and therefore we are smarter. It took millions of years for us to get to this point. However, we go back in time to the pyramids, both in Egypt and to the ones in South America, which predate Egyptian, and we find a tremendous precision. We find in Egypt that it would take a knowledge of advanced calculus to be able to lay this thing out and build it right. We find a foundation many, many acres wide that is leveled to within a quarter of an inch of dead level. The Peruvian pyramids predate the Egyptian and have the very same marks of intelligence about them. So what if? What if the Bible narrative is correct? What would change? Why would the biblical narrative be viewed as so dangerous, so destructive to science, when there's a list as long as your arm of old scientists going back to the 1500s, 16, 17, 1800s, people you would recognize, Louis Pasteur, Babbage, the guy that is credited with creating first computer, all of these guys and gals who were committed Christians, Bible believers. Their science and their faith did not conflict. In fact, many times the Bible supported them in their search when science said it couldn't work. But they believed that it would because the Bible said so. I think of Galileo. And it was the church that put him in jail because he dared to say that the earth revolved around the sun. But, there you are. The Bible tells about a universe with stars in it that you can't number. The Bible describes scientific processes. I think of the hydrologic cycle. It's in Job. It talks about it. There's a lot of things that the Bible talks about. Dinosaurs, the Bible talks about dinosaurs, describes them. Clearly they are dinosaurs. So what would change if we were to say, okay, yeah, there's a little this, a little that, and we'll just follow the facts? Well, what would change is that men would have to acknowledge God. You would have to acknowledge God the way he presents himself in the Bible. That's the problem. The science isn't the issue. God is. And at every turn, science corrects for new discoveries. Why not Mount St. Helens? They call it the Little Grand Canyon. It was created in a very short period of time. What if?